So Awaken with JP has embarrassed himself again. Last time it was on Antinatalism, this time it's on Childfree. Now, Childfree stuff is not my usual wheelhouse, it's not really what I talk about, but I found this video so ignorant, and I think that conservatives, at least from what I've seen, are going to quite often conflate Childfree and Antinatalism and move between them. And so I thought it was worth, at least sometimes when I see a particularly ignorant thing on Childfree, making a video about it. Now, before we get into the completely reasonable clip that triggered JP, I just want to say that I'm only going to be reacting to specific parts of JP's video that I have something to say on. If you want to watch the whole video, there's a link in the description. Let's get started.
Our degenerate culture is now telling us you'll have no kids and you'll be happy about it.
Okay, so we're off to a flying start. The first thing I'm going to do is just list up on screen the endless pronatalist policies that have been popping up around the world that really call into question this idea of what JP's saying about the culture is telling you not to have kids, or that you won't have kids and that you'll be happy about it. Like, how is the culture telling you, JP, not to have kids and that you'll be happy about it? The birthing of kids is still overwhelmingly celebrated around the world and in America. Are there some influencers online who advocate to be child-free or just say it's acceptable to be child-free? Yeah. Is that enough to say that the culture at large is telling you not to have kids? No. And to add on top of that, there are plenty of influencers online who have kids, promote having kids, center their content around parenting, all of these things.
There is a growing popularity amongst pop culture that the path to happiness is having no kids. The most fulfilling, loving thing you can do. That's not going to make you happy. It'll interfere with your ability to go get caramel mocha lattes at Starbucks and your ability to make money. And we know those things can definitely make you happy, but love and human connection, that can't make you happy, so no kids for you is our sincerest recommendation.
So clearly there are different levels of interest and desire that people have, right? Someone's interest and desire to have a latte is clearly not as strong and deep a desire to have love and human connection. And JP very dishonestly picks out the most trivial reason about getting a latte on why someone would be child-free and stacks it up against the largest potential benefit of having a child, which presumably for most people is that deep bond that you have with a child, or in a lot of cases people have with a child. It's not guaranteed. And we haven't even got to the clip that JP's reacting to yet. And the approach JP has taken is even more dishonest, given the fact that the guy he's reacting to in the clip takes an extremely nuanced position on him not having children. But anyway, we're going to get into that clip soon.
That almost sounds like it comes from Satan and wants to stop human life from breeding and stop loving connections. That's weird.
Oh, here come the Satan references.
Obvious expressions of evil. The devil always masquerades as an angel in disguise. Their satanic website, evil. Freakishly satanic devil, evil, Satan. It's because you don't believe in God. You need God.
I think it was blessed are the cheesemakers.
I have a prediction that marriages without kids are happier than marriages with kids. Now, studies have been done. Kids for sure diminish your overall life satisfaction.
Wow, those sound like World Economic Forum studies.
Oh, so if a study's results suggest something that JP doesn't like, they're automatically World Economic Forum studies. You can't just dismiss a study that people have put in work into to produce by saying, it's part of a conspiracy. Like, you actually have to show why you think the study is wrong. Delve into the study. You may even show that the study was done in the wrong way or they misinterpreted the results, but just attaching it to your pet internet theory and dismissing it is not good enough. So let's not do what JP did, and let's actually have a look at the studies that Tom, the guy in this clip, is likely referring to. Now, what I'm going to do is play a clip from an older video, because I actually went over this research in an older video, so I'm going to include that clip now.
The relationship between parenthood and happiness. What I want to caveat before I mention any of it, I have not done super extensive research into this topic. I just did some research for this video. Do your own research, and I more than welcome you to get in the comments and discuss this. What I'm about to show on screen, what it shows to me is that the picture is actually much more complicated than what Konstantin is putting across. It actually doesn't seem to be the case that women would necessarily, or people generally would necessarily be sacrificing their long-term happiness. So what I'm going to do is flash some studies up on the screen now and link them in the description that people can go and look at. And generally what I found from them, one of the general trends that seem to be pretty consistent is that actually parents tend to be on the whole less happy and less satisfied in the long term than non-parents. And actually, this came as a surprise to me. I assumed creating someone, raising them, nurturing this vulnerable young being would lead to longer term more satisfaction and happiness. It didn't actually seem like there was a relationship, a positive relationship between parenthood and happiness. It actually seemed the opposite, like there was a negative one. Now, in the studies, they did point to the fact that a lot of that disparity in happiness between parents and non-parents could be caused and alleviated by certain public policies. So it may not be intrinsic to parenthood that it makes people less happy in the long term. But what I also saw in the studies is that they said, even though it may not be intrinsically negative to your long-term happiness and well-being, there's also no evidence, at least from what I saw, that it would be intrinsically positive as well, even if all of the public policies were accounted for and did alleviate what they could. And another thing that I saw is that the public policies that went to alleviate this happiness gap between parents and non-parents, it did raise the happiness of parents in many circumstances, but it actually also raised the happiness of childless women as well. Not so on men, but it did also raise the happiness on women as well. So these policies don't just improve the well-being, it seems, of parents.
Studies show that having kids diminish your overall life satisfaction. Now, context, Tom does not have kids. So his reference point is he probably loves his life. He's got megabucks. He does whatever he wants. He's also fulfilling a purpose. He helps other people. He gets good positive messages out there. So I don't blame him for saying, my life is good. My life might be different, and therefore it might be worse if I had kids. But I can tell you from my experience, having my beautiful son, by far the most satisfying thing I've ever done in life. And you know what? The work that I do, the work that I was doing before I had a kid, so fulfilling. I was kind of like in Tom's position. I had a very happy life before I had a child. A pretty satisfied life. But guess what? My life satisfaction and happiness only escalated. Before we see the rest of Tom's clip, I'll tell you this. I think it's easy for a person who has a happy life to theorize, well, I'm happy now, therefore when I have kids, I might be less happy. Here's why I think they think that. Because I thought it. It's because our minds can measure what we'll lose. Our minds can't measure what we're going to gain. Our minds can measure what we'll lose, but they can't measure what we're going to gain.
Firstly, he says that Tom's only reference point is his own life, but that's literally the opposite of what Tom was doing in the clip. He referenced studies that had been done. He wasn't making the case by pointing to his own life. Now, granted, not in the clip that JP specifically reacts to, but in the wider clip that he's taken that from, Tom actually does reference his own life. But it's clear that when he's referencing his own life, he's considered this decision and this topic in a very deep and nuanced way. And he's considered a range of things, one of which is the quality of his life. For JP to boil that down to, well, he thinks he's happy, but he doesn't know what he's missing out on, is just ignorant. And the second thing to say is that even though JP claims that Tom only referenced his own life, which he didn't, that's exactly what JP just did in this clip. He literally only points to his own life satisfaction as a reason for creating his child.
Let's hear more from Tom.
It might come back like when you're in your 60s, but from like the time you have your kid until after all of them have left the house for a significant period of time, it diminishes your overall sense of well-being. So having kids is the ultimate act of sacrifice. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, amazing, and I hope people...
By the way, I would agree having kids is the ultimate act of sacrifice. My experience in life is the more I sacrifice towards something, the more satisfied and happy I am. Think about earning a first place trophy by not earning it. You made no sacrifices. It's just like millennial Gen Z situation where, cool, you show up, you're a glob of shit. You get a first place trophy. You feel no satisfaction around that because you made no sacrifice for it. But if you work your butt off, you sacrifice, you go through physical pain and training, you sacrifice your time dedicated to training in this endeavor, and you earn the first place trophy only through the pathway of your sacrifice, how much greater is your satisfaction? I would dare say sacrifice for a worthy purpose equals tremendous satisfaction. Apparently, I see this differently than Tom.
So he reels off all this spiel about sacrifice, not realizing that you can do all of that without having a kid. Many people will put effort and dedication and sacrifice into things in their life and get great fulfillment from that, and it not be creating a child. And it may even be more fulfilling for that person than creating a child. Not everyone has creating someone else as their main desire and goal in life. Granted, many people do, and Tom actually recognizes this in the original clip, but there's a big chunk of people who don't have that as their main goal in life, and that's fine. He also seems to be trying to belittle Tom in this by saying, apparently I see this different from Tom, presumably implying that Tom doesn't understand to the same extent as JP what sacrifice means and the rewards it can bring, but Tom literally said the exact same thing in the clip JP played. So either JP isn't paying attention or he's just trying to slide in cheap shots because he doesn't actually have anything substantive to say. And also, who's defining a worthy purpose here? Is it JP? So JP gets to decide what is a worthy purpose for others?
Well, let's see what the comments have to say on this video clip on the Iced Coffee Hour Instagram page. These are not supportive of Tom's view. It seems that people without kids often try to justify their decision.
What has JP been doing this whole video? Justifying his decision to create someone by saying that it's made his life more satisfying. This comment is hilarious. It just goes to show how people are so keen to see faults in others, but they don't recognize when they're doing the exact same thing. So many antinatalists and presumably child-free people know as well that as soon as you get onto this topic and someone who has created someone finds out you hold an opposing view, they instantly go into trying to justify why they created someone.
Next comment. Absolute bullshit. Having a child has been the best thing my wife and I have ever done and will ever do. Bullshit. Without kids, your life is pointless. Yeah, I agree with the bullshit, but your life isn't necessarily pointless without kids. Next comment. Complete BS. A lot of bullshit in this comment section. Complete BS. Life without kids is empty-ass life. Ian Valier comments, which I know his name. Yeah, he's a professional bodybuilder. Happen to know his name. Not having children is one of the biggest mistakes people can make. Next comment, you'll just die alone. Either your wife will die first and the other will be left to die alone in the hospital surrounded by strangers. That's what you're accepting. Next comment, I think this is BS. Just wondering, I can't find any comments that agree with his perspective. Here's a Viktor Frankl quote. When a man can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Whoa, that's actually pretty profound.
It's funny. So this person posts a Viktor Frankl quote, obviously trying to say that if someone doesn't create someone else, then their life is not going to have meaning. And so they just need to find like these trivial pleasures to try and distract themselves from the fact that their life doesn't have meaning. But hang on, this is literally what people who choose to create someone else do all the time. Look at the comments that JP just put up on screen. They literally reference the fact that they got pleasure from creating someone else and that it brought their life meaning and their life isn't empty and pointless. What does this sound like? It sounds like someone who couldn't find a deep sense of meaning in their life, and so they had to create someone and get the pleasure that they get from raising that person to distract from the fact that they couldn't stand on their own 2 feet and find meaning in their life on their own. It's astounding how ironic people's comments are.
There is a kind of trendy acronym called DINKS that help justify no kids. Almost sounds like we're brainwashed by the extinctionists that hate humans and want us off planet Earth, but I'm sure that's not the case. Because I don't know that I'm brainwashed. That's part of the brainwashing, idiot! So DINKS means double income, no kids, which implies income, double income makes us happy, kids would make us unhappy. The wisdom throughout the ages is if you make your life about seeking pleasure for your own gratification, you won't find fulfillment. You'll find dopamine hits, you'll find safety, security, but that safety, security that makes you feel protected will soon imprison you. The wisdom also shares, if you make your life about being of service, that is the true source of happiness. And in my life experience, that seems true to me.
So I do actually agree a bit with JP here. It does seem to me that chasing material things and satisfying your short-term desires constantly, perhaps to the detriment of your long-term desires, is actually not going to lead to long-term happiness and fulfillment. And I do agree that some of the child-free messaging online is very consumerist and plays into this. Whether or not you have a kid, going down that path is probably not going to lead you to long-term happiness and fulfillment in life. And JP says, alternatively, Alternatively, you should live a life of service and this will bring you fulfillment. But the thing I want to point out is that you don't have to have a kid to live a life of service. Think of all the figures that we look up to either in the modern day or in history who lived a life of service. We don't focus on whether they had kids or not. We focus on the things that they achieved and the acts of service they carried out. But even if you aren't one of these people remembered in history, there are plenty of ways that you can live your life in service to others if that's how you want to find long-term fulfillment. That doesn't include having a child. And I just want to remind people that having a child, no matter how much people dress it up as a life of service, which I think is a bit of a romanticization, it's not a guarantee to bring you long-term life satisfaction. Many things can go wrong. You don't know what your relationship is going to be like with that child as they grow older. Those are all things that people really need to take into account when they're talking about long-term satisfaction and creating someone else.
Jordan Peterson, one of the great thinkers of our time. Let's hear what he has to say about the topic.
Most young women are taught badly that the most important thing that they'll do in their life is their career, and that's simply not true. It's not true for most people, and it's certainly not true for most women.
I certainly wasn't taught that myself. I feel like I'm doing quite well in my career, but I still have pressures. People who are saying, you know, when are you actually going to succeed properly by having a baby?
Yeah.
I kind of find that slightly offensive. I'm 38.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've got through my early 30s without almost luckily, when I look at what my friends have to deal with their children, I almost feel a little bit blessed. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that it starts to get pretty lonesome in life after 45 if you don't have a family, you know, and so it's easy to consider the utility of an intense career, and like you have a very high quality career too, you know, that's something that marks you out from let's say more typical people, and perhaps that's worth more of a sacrifice, but you know, you're going to live till you're 90 in all likelihood, and it's not easy to consider your life across its entire span, and there's something to be said for developing a very close-knit, intimate community around you if you can manage it.
So look, Jordan Peterson does speak some sense here. Most people will gain something from having a tight-knit community or family around them, especially as they get older. And I don't think that's something that antinatalist or child-free people should try and deny at all. The family or community you have around you, especially in old age, does not need to be biological. That's just often the traditional means that people get that, and it's sort of like the biological blueprint that people can just go to, and it comes to our minds very easily. And a biological family, for many people, does cater to needs that we have as social beings. And if you don't have a biological family, then you're likely going to need to find alternatives for that, and that's something that you should be looking into before you get into the situation where you are older and it's more difficult to establish one. Anyway, let me know what you thought of that video. Let me know how ignorant you thought JP was, and I will see you in the next one.
Evil, Satan,
Cheesemakers.